Hey there everybody, it's Saturday, June 16th, 2018. I'm back from a couple weeks of being away. This is your weekend review and weekly mixtape for All About Your Benjamins. I want to apologize for giving you a couple weeks of no weekend review and no weekly mixtape. We've had a busy couple weeks. Had a quick trip down to Disney, had the boys end of the summer, or I guess beginning of the summer but end of the season, soccer tournaments last weekend, and just wasn't able to get this out in time. But hey, I'm back, and that's the most important thing. We've got a pretty busy week of headlines driving your financial planning and investments. So let's get to those. I usually start off with a market-driven or a political headline that is driving the markets and your financial planning. This week's headline is impacting financial planning, but in a different way. The Wall Street Journal reported that Merrill Lynch is considering lifting bans on commissionable products in retirement accounts. These bans came about because of the fiduciary standard, the Department of Labor's ruling that was passed and was not passed and was passed again, and now looks like it's dead. So not having commissionable products in IRAs complied with the fiduciary standard. Would eliminate the majority of the conflicts of interest that advisors would be subject to, and Merrill Lynch and other wirehouses used this kind of as a marketing ploy to make these changes and actually change some policy, which was a good thing. But now that the rule is pretty much gone, they're going to consider, my guess would be, go back to the old bad habits of offering conflicted recommendations and products for inside of retirement accounts. I always like to mention that not every advisor that is a commission-based advisor is scamming their clients, just like not every fee-based or fee-only advisor is doing everything right by their clients. You have good guys and bad guys on both sides, but I do think that the fiduciary ruling was a step in the right direction. Eliminating those conflicts of interest was better for the clients, not necessarily better for the companies. So that being said, I bring it up just so you're aware that if you see a push for some non-traded REITs or variable annuities for your retirement accounts towards the end of the year, don't be surprised. That's why the standard of ruling is no longer fiduciary. It's back to suitable for most advisors, and there are trips to be won by the end of the year. So if your advisor is on the commission side, they will be able to move away from the fee-based type of advising relationship back to the commission. Just be aware, know how your advisor is being compensated, know what standard of care they're held to, and if you're okay with that, then keep on with your plan, but at least know. I think that's the most important thing in all of this conversation. So I was a little bit long-winded on that one, longer than normal for one specific subject, but I'm pretty passionate about it, and I think it does impact way more of the public, way more investors and clients than the next ones are going to, even more so than the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, which they did this week. But it was no surprise. As they say on CNBC and on Wall Street, it was baked into the prices. The markets were aware of that. It was already reflected. So no big surprise there. If you remember, the Federal Reserve's job is to try to keep inflation in check, keep the economy growing. So they do that by changing the rates. This was well forecasted. Everybody knew this was going to be the case, and expectations are for another rate hike later in the year. So hopefully we'll see this increased rate by 0.25%, so 0.25%. Trickle down to our savings. If you're not using an online savings, you may want to check that out. Some pretty decent online savings rates for checking accounts and savings accounts there. And then also, if the savings rates are going to be potentially going up as far as interest earned, then you can expect that the interest paid to borrow money, like on mortgages, will be going up as well. So yes, savings rates should go up, but also borrowing costs will go up as well. Just be on the lookout for that. Tariffs remain a subject matter that we're hearing in the news. US and China back at it again. On Friday, we announced that we're going to have a 25% tariff on $50 billion of Chinese goods. They came right back at us with a tariff of their own on nearly 700 US products and goods, up from about just 100 originally back in April. So the back and forth is continuing to go. We'll see how this plays out, but expect in the short term, if you're an investor in individual securities, you may see more impact from these headlines from day to day, because certain companies are impacted more than others. If you're a long-term investor, if you're globally diversified, it may not be as big of a deal, but it's just good to know that this back and forth is continuing, and there may be some market reaction to what comes out one day about the tariffs to the next. The ECB, the European Central Bank, had announced that they're going to end their version of QE, quantitative easing, which means they're going to stop the bond purchase program they've been running to help prop up the economy so they can get back on growth. As a believer of being in a globally diversified portfolio, I think it's very important to know what's going on, not necessarily make changes to your portfolio, but know what's going on because it will impact part of your portfolio. So if the ECB is no longer going to be buying these bonds, it's shifting more of the responsibility of growth onto the European countries. And unfortunately, it seems like they might be running out of a little bit of steam right now. The US is growing at a pretty good rate. Expectations are going to be around 4% growth by the end of the summer, which is very good. But we're seeing numbers out of Europe that some of other countries, like Italy was a big one over the last couple of weeks, and Germany are starting to see some slowdown. So if those economies are slowing and the bond purchase program is going away, even though they're keeping interest rates the same through next summer is the expectation, you may see some short-term impact on the international component of your portfolio. Now, don't go change it. Go talk to your financial advisor and see if you need to make changes, but it's just good to know what's going on in different areas of your portfolio and understand why diversification does what it does. Sometimes it helps us, sometimes it creates a drag and it's frustrating. So we may see a situation where your advisor is apologizing for that diversified portfolio in the short term because maybe the international exposure with this bond purchase going down is going to step back on pricing. So we'll see. We don't know, but I just want you to be aware of that and understand that. Another big headline, which I'm not going to say much about, is President Trump and Kim Jong-un met. A lot of coverage on that. Didn't appear to be anything bad coming out of it, so I'm not going to say much about it. And then the final market-driven headline is the nearly 2-year process of the AT&T Time Warner merger. That deal was approved by a federal judge this week. So setting the stage for that merger to go through. We'll see how that plays things, but also potentially setting the stage for more mergers and acquisitions. So we call that M&A in the future. So we'll see how that goes. But that was a big headline. I bring it up just because it seemed like it was going on forever, and it was big news on Wall Street and kind of in business itself. As I'm losing Silas, knocked him out, so this stuff is boring. Hopefully you're still awake. Thanks for staying with me this long. Now we're gonna get to some more fun things. So some non-planning headlines. It's been a tremendous couple of weeks of music, especially if you're a hip-hop fan like I am. Love him or hate him, Kanye West is doing his thing when it comes to records. Over the last few weeks, he's been setting the charts on fire. He's either recorded and released or produced 4 albums now. They've all had 7 songs that I haven't really researched why he went with 7, but he had his own CD. He put out a CD with for Pusha T, which I think he's a very underrated artist. He had a joint album with Kid Cudi, and then yesterday a much anticipated album with Nas, which I've not had a chance to listen all the way through because it just came out on iTunes and it was only streaming on YouTube yesterday and I was not able to listen to it. But a new album with Nas that I'm very excited about came out as well. So it's been a good week of music in the office when clients aren't there. I've had my head bobbing as I've been doing my work listening to these different albums. So a good week of music. And then finally, I grew up a basketball fan. Lived, slept, breathed, ate, drank basketball. The boys love basketball, but we also are becoming soccer fans, and the World Cup kicked off this week. So we will be watching a lot of World Cup. If you did not see the end of the match yesterday, Cristiano Ronaldo did his thing. He had a hat trick, but the crazy thing and the highlight you have to see is the game-tying goal that he kicked near the end of the match. Bend it around the wall, right in. It was an amazing kick. It was an exciting start. Although that wasn't the first match to the World Cup, it still was an amazing and exciting start to the month of soccer. So it's going to be a hot and muggy day here in Indiana. So if we're not at the pool, we're going to be in the house watching some football. And yes, I did go there and say football. So that's it for this week's in review. A little longer than normal. Thanks for staying with me, but I had a lot to cover. Be sure to subscribe to the blog and to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. I'm trying to put a lot of content out there to help you learn more about your financial planning, think differently about your financial planning, not always teaching, but just kind of giving you some things to think about and ponder. So stay up to date with everything. I had a great conversation with my friend Tyrone Ross on the podcast this week. We were talking about cryptocurrency and what he's doing with that space with his clients, kind of a timing that couldn't have been better as the cryptocurrency world is just crashing and going into a bear market. So a good conversation there. And be sure to check out the podcast release this coming Tuesday with Brian Portnoy. We talk about his book, The Geometry of Wealth. This is one of those conversations that will prompt you to think more than just the numbers and bigger picture about money and what wealth is and how that ties into your financial planning. So be sure to check that out. You won't want to miss it. And while you're at it, grab his book, because all of the proceeds, not part of it, all of the proceeds from the sale of this book are going to charity. So it's a great book to learn from, and it's also a good book from a good cause going to good charities. So with that, I'll let you get to your weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and we'll see you in the next episode.